Ah. Alrighty then. We're getting there. We're getting there. There we go. We are live. We are live, Angel. We are live.
Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Syl. Good morning, Brain. And good morning to everyone who is watching us live and will watch us recorded. You are most welcome to join us here. And of course, you are most welcome to watch us recorded there on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Substack. We are using multiple platforms to reach out. We are just making ourselves available. This is the only intent we have, because we are sharing. We are sharing here on Facebook as we were doing before only, but now we are making ourselves available. When opportunities, possibilities make themselves available, then we have no excuse to not learn and grow. This is how the universe take things very seriously, because when universe provides you an opportunity to learn and grow and make it really make it obvious for you, then after that, if you waste it, then you cannot make any complaints about it. Like, okay, oh, I never get a chance. You always have a chance, but sometimes in life, it is like right there in front of your face. Like, okay, yes, it is there. Why don't you grab it? This is the problem. We all get into that. Okay, sometimes we get overwhelmed by that. And sometimes we assume that we got this awareness by chance, by luck, we got this awareness, and now it is our duty to pass it on immediately. We have this. And this is what I call, okay, I'm just trying to coin some term for myself for more understanding, and also create an analogy. So my analogy is for that it's an getting rid of foreign body. This is how our whole being reacts to when we don't make things and new awareness our own. Then of course it's a foreign body in our system. And what our system do to foreign bodies? Try to get rid of it as soon as possible. So the most obvious, the most easiest, and the most available one is throw it out. And this is what we do. But to satisfy our conscious, we named it as, oh, I'm trying to help others. We cannot help others first until we actually really, in terms of like the jargon, the famous jargon, that we heal ourselves. But in way of impeccability, until we learn and grow, we cannot do this. So the helping is like, okay, we are not entitled to, we are not eligible to, we are not obliged to help others. No, the only person we are obliged to help is ourselves. So whenever we encounter these feeling that, oh, I got some awareness, I got the magic wand, I got like the magic trick, now it is going to solve everything, immediately just take a brief pause, take a power pause, or another term from Way-Of-Impeccability, take a power pause and let it sink in and see that, is it my body? It is my body trying to get rid of this as like, and considering it as a foreign body in my system, or it's a real urge, real desire to help others. It's a very, I know that it's very sensitive because everybody wants to help others and with a very good intent. I'm not questioning the intent to goodness, no, but giving ourselves a bit of power pause will help us tremendously to understand what we really need right now, in this moment. Because the most deserving person in this moment for my help, my assistance, my love, and my care is myself, Beena. So first, if I have already make it my own, if it is already in application in every aspect of my life, whatever the new awareness, the profound perspective, if it is already in application and I am getting results and resolutions and of course benefits of that awareness, then yes, I can share. Then I can share with others. But if it is like, okay, yes, by chance I got a kite and now I'm running and I'm just going to pass it on, then it's a marathon. I'm not getting any benefit of it. No. and it is not going to be helpful for others. So this is, don't take, like, don't rush. When you got something really profound, don't rush to share. Give yourself a bit of power pause where you can just let it sink in and make it your own. Then of course it is going to exude from you.
Say that
People
again.
will,
That's it. Exactly.
okay, let it sink in, make it your own, and of course it is automatically going to exude from you,
Yeah.
and then everybody will
Take a
get
power
benefit of it.
pause to let it sink in.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So this idea of throwing it out, sometimes we get mixed up and get confused with the urge to throw it out and to help. We
Yes.
we
Yes.
just want to make our conscience clear that, oh, I just did my responsibility to share it with others. Now it's their responsibility to apply it in their life and make the world a better place.
Yeah.
But I'm done with my responsibility. Sorry, but this is not the way to do things. It's a
No.
escape way. It's something like a very sneaky ego thing, that I don't need all these things, all other people need.
Important. Yeah. Wonderful,
And
Beena.
this,
Absolutely wonderful. All right. Before we get going, I want to say hello on IG to Mira Rodriguez. Brilliant for joining us. And then we've got on TikTok, House of Double Funny. House of Double Funny. Brilliant. Hi, House of Double Funny. Richard Ramos, Basia Pirzad, and Pamela Whitemarsh. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So hello everybody on there too. Glad you joined us. That's most wonderful indeed.
hello and
And I
welcome
said,
everyone to Moreness-Culture.
yes, yes, that's what we're doing. We are sharing Moreness-Culture and via specifically doing a capital R reading of Carlos Castaneda's books, right? And with the intent of getting to know Don Juan, yeah, and to read Don Juan's Moreness and connect to his Moreness, right? Because he has lots of Moreness, and to add our own Moreness, we bring lots of extra Moreness to things as well. And we're going to look at this, via the greater context and everything. So lots going on. You'll see when we read, right? And last we were Carlos's driving with Don Juan 1,000-mile journey to attend the mitote again, but this time Carlos is only going to be doing so as an observer, right? And not as a participant. He's very scared of participating, and he wants to observe to test his theory about somebody queuing people and all this nonsense that is going on, right? So he's going to just observe. But while driving, it's nighttime and the headlights behind, and Don Juan makes the analogy to say, oh, it's the headlights on the death's head, right? And then the lights turn off, and then I had a little story about that as well. Anyhow, so we will continue our reading. Do you want to read, Beena, or both of us read again? Oh, you can read it. It's all just no dialogue actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So more
Let me
people
just
joining us on
say,
TikTok, which is wonderful.
okay, let me just say
By the
hello
way, on
on
TikTok.
YouTube.
Somebody on YouTube? Okay. I want to say, TikTokers, please do me a favor. TikTok is asking me to get 2,000 likes on the lives. So if all of you watching, just leave me a like. We very much appreciated. I don't know. They have TikTok is very fiddly when it comes to live, right? I mean, you have to have at least for me, I had to have 10,000 followers before I could go live and all sorts of complicated things. So anyway, I'd appreciate it if you guys left me likes there. That'd be very helpful. That'd be very helpful. All right, I'll read while you do that. And we're continuing from where we are left off, right? No, he said, death never stops. Sometimes it turns off its lights. That's all. We arrived in northeastern Mexico, June 13. Two old Indian women who looked alike and seemed to be sisters, and four girls were gathered at the door of a small adobe house. There was a hut behind the house and a dilapidated barn that had only part of its roof and one wall left. The women were apparently waiting for us. They must have spotted my car by the dust it raised on the dirt road after I left the paved highway a couple of miles away. The house was in a deep valley, And viewed from the door, the highway looked like a long scar high up on the side of green hills. Ah, brilliant. Beena's saying hello. Hello, Beena. Don Juan got out of the car
Yes.
and talked with the old woman for a moment.
So you're
They
not sharing
pointed to some
screen.
wood. They pointed to some wooden stools. Yeah, they pointed to some wooden stools in front of the door. Right, let me screen share. Let me screen share. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Beena. Screen share. Good, good. All sorts of wonderful people joining us on IG. I love it. I love it, IGS. And by the way, we thrive on comments, IGS. So please, we love comments. We love questions, especially. Feel free to ask and to comment, right? It's interactive and we very much respond to questions, whatever questions. Sometimes people ask questions that they don't seem to be connected to what we're doing. Doesn't matter. Ask anyway. Ask anyway. We are open to whatever comes. We are open. We are open. All right, brilliant. Don Juan signaled me to come over and sit down. One of the old women sat with us. The rest went inside the house. Two of the girls remained by the door, examining me with curiosity. I waved at them. They giggled and ran inside. After a few minutes, two young men came over and greeted Don Juan. They did not speak to me or even look at me. Oh, wow, interesting. They talked to Don Juan briefly. Then he got up, and all of us, including the woman, walked to another house, perhaps half a mile away. We met there with another group of people. Don Juan went inside, but told me to stay by the door. I looked in and saw an old Indian man around Don Juan's age sitting on a wooden stool. It was not quite dark. A group of young Indian men and women were standing quietly around an old truck parked in front of the house. I talked to them in Spanish, but they deliberately avoided answering me. The woman giggled every time I said something, and the men smiled politely and turned their eyes away. It was as, it was as if they did not understand me, yet I was sure all of them spoke Spanish because I had heard them talking among themselves. After a while, Don Juan and the other old man came out and got into the truck and sat next to the driver. That appeared to be a signal for everyone to climb onto the flatbed of the truck. There were no side railings, and when the truck began to move, we all hung onto a long rope that was tied to some hooks on the chassis. Wow. That them not talking to Don Juan, to Carlos, this is anomalous. And as such, something for Carlos to pay attention to as an anomaly, which he doesn't. Yeah. He pays attention to it, but not as
Hmm.
an anomaly. Yeah. As an oddity, as a peculiarity, but not as an anomaly. In other words, as an anomaly, the way I'm using it here as part of Moreness-Culture, anomalies, capital A, anomalies are the language of the world, the language of the universe. It's a communication that is there for you personally. Very important. It's there for you personally. It is intimately connected to you. It you to you, right? Significant to you personally. And he's not getting this, right? And in other words, to me, if I were to read it, again, these things are very personal, so it's hard to do always very accurately from the outside. But if I were Carlos in that situation, I would take it to as a confirmation that you are an outsider and an observer. That's what you came here to do, right? That was the intent. Remember, Don Juan said, and he himself said he wants to observe. Yeah, the universe is telling you by them not engaging you, stay out of it. Don't be engaging in people. Observe. Yes, Beena? Isn't that how you would treat
Yes.
that anomaly as well? Yeah, makes
Yes.
sense. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Ah.
Absolutely.
So this is the power of anomalies. Yes, it's very simple, but it's a confirmation. Now you know what you're doing is capital R right. It's in attunement. See? Very simple. It's not wild. It's like no big, great revelation of something new and wild and important, but that's not the issue. And that doesn't matter. That's not the intent of it. Yes? The intent is for you to get that confirmation that now you are in attunement and what you are doing is right, which gives you a confidence and it gives you a deliberateness, yes, of doing. And when we now act with such deliberateness and power motivation, all our intent and attention gets leveraged. Very, very, very powerful. Yes, very, very powerful. Really good. All right. They're on the back of this flatbed truck, right? Sitting on the back there, driving on dirt roads, hanging onto this rope to not fall off, right? Where was that? On the chassis. The truck moved slowly on the dirt road. At one point, on a very steep slope, it stopped and everybody jumped down and walked behind it. Then two young men hopped onto the flatbed again and sat on the edge without using the rope. The woman laughed and encouraged them to maintain their precarious position. Don Juan and the old man, who was referred to as Don Silvio, walked together and did not seem to be concerned with the young men's histrionics. When the road leveled off, everybody got back on the truck again. Again, Don Juan and Don Silvio. Yeah. Now I wonder if this is Silvio Manuel, who'll come into it much later, one of Don Juan's party, but it doesn't matter. Them not paying attention to the histrionics is also, for me, slightly significant as well. It's a further confirmation of stay outside of it. Yeah, be an observer, right? I don't know. It's very small, very subtle, but see, that's attunement. It gives you lots of little clues, right? And now you really get to understand how it is, right? Very important. When the road leveled off, everybody got on the track again. We rode for about an hour. The floor was extremely hard and uncomfortable. So I stood up and held onto the roof of the cab and rode that way until we stopped in front of a group of shacks. There were more people there. It's very dark by then, and I could see only a few of them in the dim yellowish light of a kerosene lantern that hung by the open door. By an open door. Everybody got off the truck and mingled with the people in the houses. Don Juan told me again to stay outside. Third time. Yes, Beena? Don Juan told me again to stay outside. If you take stay outside figuratively, be the observer.
Yes.
Right, Beena?
Yes,
Yeah?
exactly.
Yeah?
Yes.
It's just, I'm sharing because when we pay attention, this whole activity, everything where Carlos gets involved with Don Juan, where there's a specific intent involved, there's moreness, there's power, it's something that's in attunement. And this is now just a great opportunity for us to see when you pay attention to attunement and you have attunement in awareness, you notice things and you're getting clues, you're getting hints, you're getting guidance that you don't otherwise get. But you have to be paying attention, right, to attunement. And you have to understand it as attunement. Yeah. It won't tell you
Yes.
directly do this, do that, right? So
Exactly.
it's wonderful. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yes.
Don Juan told me again to stay outside. I leaned against the front fender of the truck, and after a minute or two, I was joined by three young men. I had met one of them 4 years before at the previous mitote. He embraced me by grabbing my forearms. "You're fine," he whispered to me in Spanish. Wow, very significant too, no? "You're fine," he says to him, which it has multiple layers of meaning. In the pure abstract, Carlos is being told to stay outside, and here somebody comes and actually grabs him by the forearms and says, "You're fine." Because for Carlos to not be sociable in the usual way, to stay outside a little bit, is very difficult to do because he's very concerned with being popular, liked, and stuff like that. He's insecure, in other words, right? So this is now again another attunement message. Now, also, it's got to do with this young man is another apprentice, if I'm remembering correctly or understanding it correctly. And he knows about Carlos's trial with La Catalina, and he survived that. So he says you find that also is referring to that. And also the fact that Carlos was away for 2 years and has now finally come back, right? So all of it together. But in the context of attunement, it's saying, you're okay, Carlos, being on the outside observing. It's okay. You chill, right? Isn't that beautiful, Beena? That's the magic of attunement. Yeah.
So beautiful.
And it's
Yes.
significant, right? I mean, it's not just a regular comment. He grabs him by the forearms. Pay attention.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Absolutely fantastic. It's very rare, by the way, to get such clear and lucid exemplifications and elucidations of attunement, because it's a magical process and it's very personal. But when you see it in this way, you get an idea of how it works, right? And you just have to practice it, just have to pay attention. It's a very, very powerful thing, right? This is a shift of perspective, really, and it's very rare to get such nice, clear examples. It's
Yes.
most wonderful. We stayed very quietly by the truck. It was a warm, windy night. I could hear the soft rumble of a stream close by. My friend asked me in a whisper if I had any cigarettes. I passed the pack around. By the glow of the cigarettes, I looked at my watch. It was 9 o'clock. A group of people emerged from inside the house soon afterwards, and the three young men walked away. Don Juan came over to me and told me that he had explained my presence to everybody's satisfaction, and that I was welcome to come and serve water at the mitote. Wow. Wow. So now Carlos gets a job, which, remember before when he did the previous mitote, there were a woman that was serving the water, right? And I still made the comment that I wonder if ever there are men, and if it's reversed, sometimes to the woman. And anyway, so at least here now is a male serving the water. It makes me happy. It makes me happy. Anyway, but what's nice for Carlos is that he has an official presence. He's legitimate there, right? Serving the water. He's not just sitting around staring at people. See, he's in an ideal opportunity to observe. Yeah. So Don
Yes.
Juan, strategy. Yes, this is deliberate by Don Juan. Yeah. Uh, I was welcome to serve water at the mitote. He said we would be going right away. A group of 10 women and 11 men left the house. The man heading the party was rather husky. He was perhaps in his mid-50s. They called him Motto, a nickname which means cropped. He moved with brisk, firm steps. He carried a kerosene lantern and waved it from side to side as he walked. At first, I thought he was moving it at random. Carlos, you've got to understand that there's more to the world than what you think. Yeah. But then I discovered that he waved the lantern to mark an obstacle or a difficult pass on the road. We walked for over an hour. The woman chatted and laughed softly from time to time. Don Juan and the other older men were at the head of the line. I was at the very tail end of it. you the newbie. You new bro. Right. I kept my eyes down on the road, trying to see where I was walking. If this is the part I remember, there's a fun little bit of a music part coming up. It had been 4 years since Don Juan and I had been in the hills at night, and I had lost a great deal of physical prowess. I kept stumbling and involuntarily kicking small rocks. My knees did not have any flexibility. The road seemed to come up at me, and when I encountered a high spot, or it seemed to give in under me when I hit a low spot. I was the noisiest walker, and that made me an unwilling clown. Somebody in the group said, "Woo!" Every time I stumbled, and everyone laughed. At one point, again, the attunement of this. Carlos, get over your self-importance, for crikey's sake. Yeah? It's a gift for Carlos. Attunement. See, now you might think, oh, it's just people making fun, teasing, because Carlos is this unwilling clown, right? It's kind of natural to happen. Yes, it is, but there's always a moreness to life. Attunement is always all around you. There's always extra value. And particularly in this spot where Carlos is going to be this outsider. And he's an outsider just simply because he's from LA. I mean, yes, he has got, he's originally from South America, so at least he has some connectivity. He's not kind of, fully Western, right? Although he's been in America a long time. But this gives him a connectivity, right? Yes, you're the new boy and they're making fun of you, but they won't make fun of you if they don't accept you into the group. See? See the power from the
Yes.
attunement point of view. It's messaging for Carlos. Chill, dude, chill. Just relax. Enjoy it. All right. Someone in the group said, "Woo!" Every time I stumbled and everyone laughed. At one point, one of the rocks I kicked into a woman's heel and she said out loud to everyone's delight, "Give a candle to that poor boy." But the final mortification, see, for Carlos, he can't get over it, right? He can't get over himself here. But the final mortification was when I tripped and had to hold on to the person in front of me. Oh dear. He nearly lost his balance with my weight on him. And then out that deliberate scream that was out of proportion. Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of amused by this. Them teasing Carlos. Everyone laughed so hard that the whole group had to stop for a while. Yeah, I always have to stop for a while. I'm laughing too hard here. Anyway, it's simple things. But you know, why I'm laughing is because Carlos doesn't see the gift of it. Yes, and he makes himself even more of an unwilling clown because of his obtuseness, right? If he understood attunement, he would say, wow, what genius, what brilliance, what awesome. And he'd laugh along with them and you know, go with it. And now you then if Carlos had laughed along with them and not been mortified or even a little bit, but okay, you know, yes, I'm clumsy, I'm awkward, you know, and just laugh and acknowledge the humor of it. He would be completely and totally inside that group. Am I right, Beena?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you would almost develop a fondness for Carlos. And yeah, all
Exactly.
right, yes, he doesn't mean to be this way, and you know, yeah, all right, he's a good sort, he's a good soul, you know, we'll help him out, you know, like you do with children that are like that, right? You make an allowance for them, yeah. So Carlos is just a big child, but his self-importance makes him stiff and like Don Juan said, clumsy and heavy. Yeah, it makes you literally so too. Anyway, uh, when the whole group had to stop for a while. At a certain moment, the man who was leading jerked his lantern up and down. It seemed that was a sign we had arrived at our destination. It was a dark silhouette of a low house to my right, a short distance away. Everyone in the group scrambled in different directions. Wow, scrambled in different directions. Wow, like there's some time pressure, right? By implication, right? Unless this is just not a appropriate reporting by Carlos, right? But anyway, again, nuance, right? See, nuance. Scrambled implies that there's some urgency, right? I looked for Don Juan. It was difficult to
Yes.
find him in the darkness. I stumbled noisily for a while before noticing that he was sitting on a rock. Again, again, inappropriate Carlos. Have some independence of being. He's feeling lost and he needs that security blanket of Don Juan. Inappropriate, dude. You got a job to do, right? He told me again that my duty was to bring water for the men who were going to participate. He had taught me the procedure years before. I remembered every detail of it, but he insisted on refreshing my memory and showed me again how to do it. Afterwards, we walked to the back of the house where all the men had gathered. They had built a fire. Now, this is very interesting, right? That the men are partaking. Why did all the women come with? They weren't all surely going to serve water. It's a lot of, because it was fairly evenly the split between the men and the women, right? Anyway, I don't know. But odd to me, but very interesting. He told me again, afterwards we walked to the back of the house where all the men had gathered. They had built a fire. There was a cleared area covered with straw mats, perhaps 15 feet away from the fire. Mocho, the man who had led us, sat on a mat first. I noticed that the upper edge of his left ear was missing, which accounted for his nickname. At least you assume so. Don Silvio sat to his right and Don Juan to his left. Mocho was sitting facing the fire. A young man advanced towards him and placed a flat basket with peyote buttons in front of him. Then the young man sat down between Mocho and Don Silvio. Another young man carried two small baskets and placed them next to the peyote buttons and sat between Mocho and Don Juan. Then two other young men flanked Don Silvio and Don Juan. Now, in all likelihood, those young men are also apprentices. Yes, just by the arrangement and the sitting, and you know, it's we know at least I know Don Silvio from later on. Silvio Manuel is his name. He's one of Don Juan's party, and likely the same. But also just the fact that they would sit in that arrangement and so specifically interspersing, just by implication, right? One would assume they're apprentices. Yeah. Now, the two other young men flanked Don Silvio and Don Juan, closing a circle of 7 persons. The women remained inside the house. The young men were in charge of keeping the fire burning all night, And one teenager and I kept the water that was going to be given to the 7 participants after the all-night ritual. The boy and I sat by a rock. The fire and the receptacle with water were opposite each other and at an equal distance from the circle of participants. Why did the woman come with? Beena?
Thinking.
Right? I mean, I'm most curious now. Brilliant. Lubna is here. Hello, Lubna. Hello, Lubna. Lubna has joined us on IG. Hello, wonderful Lubna. Always happy when you're here. It gives me great joy. Gives me great joy. Because it wasn't a simple thing. It's not like, oh, they're going to somebody's house and the women are already there. And it's like a gathering or some. They had to make a specific effort that was somewhat not arduous, but effort involved and a bit uncomfortable, right? Driving on that truck.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. So they're making a very deliberate effort to be there. But there seems to be no reason for them to be there, at least not that we can easily see. And I would very much like to know, because just from memory, this is not addressed as to why they are there, right? Unless they do their own peyote ceremony separately, and Carlos is not aware of it because he's not a woman, he's not invited, he can't partake. That would make sense to me, right? That they got their own circle going and they do it inside the house. That would make sense, yes? Because the previous time the women were giving water, right? But this time it's Carlos who's doing the water, no one else, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So very interesting, very interesting. All right. Mocho, the headman, sang his peyote song. His eyes were closed. His body bobbed up and down. It was a very long song. I did not understand the language. Then all of them, one by one, sang their peyote songs. They did not seem to follow any preconceived order. They apparently sang whenever they felt like doing it. Then Mocho held up the basket with peyote buttons, took 2 of them, and placed it back again in the center of the circle. Don Silvio was next, and then Don Juan. The 4 young men, who seemed to be a separate unit, took 2 peyote buttons each, following a counterclockwise direction. Each of the 7 participants sang and ate 2 peyote buttons 4 consecutive times. Then they passed the other 2 baskets, which contained dried fruit and meat. They repeated this cycle at various times during the night. Yet I could not detect any underlying order to their individual movements. They did not speak to one another. They seemed rather to be by themselves and to themselves. I did not see any of them, not even once, paying attention to what the other men were doing. Before daybreak, they got up, and the young man and I gave them water. Afterwards, I walked around to orient myself. The house was a one-room shack, a low adobe construction with a thatched roof. The scenery that surrounded it was quite oppressive. The shack was located in a harsh plain with mixed vegetation. Shrubs and cacti grew together, but there were no trees at all. I did not feel like venturing beyond the house. Wow. 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 The woman left during the morning. Oh. For me, right, paying attention to things. Doesn't that strike you as interesting, Bean?
Yes. Very interesting.
Right, they all came together, but the woman left separately. Oh, very fascinating. I'm intrigued by such stuff. It might just be me, but
okay,
I want to know.
it's not. No, it's not only like, okay, it's not only you, but yes, it is interesting. But this is what we observe in almost all the um, not ancient stories, but these type of stories. It's just a group of men who are like, okay, even if you look about like, okay, Sufism, yes, there is a woman, of course, very famous one, but that is something very unique. But other than that, all the practices are limited to men only. At least I'm not sure about this, but
which bothers me inordinately. Yeah.
Yes.
No. But I have a suspicion here that the women were doing their own things. Yeah. Now, this is the magic of women, though. They have like almost like a secret society Yes, a secret culture. It's not, well, it is secret really, because it's stuff that women do and it's women's stuff. But men stuff, like in this case. But they've been forced over the millennia to develop this private culture, right? Because they get excluded unnecessarily from stuff. Now, I don't know if this culture is specifically, this is only for men. I don't know how much that's involved here. I doubt it. I don't think Don Juan will easily be a party to it. But there may be other reasons that Don Juan is associating here, right? Because this isn't necessarily something that is specifically part of his tradition. This is overlapping with general native culture tradition, right? And so this is it's a mixture, yeah, right? The woman left during the morning. The man moved slowly. If anybody listening knows more about mitotes, maybe a participant, right? Somebody who's been to them and can give some indication, some insight into this. I'm keen to know. I would very much like to know. Well, I'm assuming via the Church of Peyote in more modern times. This I know is open to everybody. I don't think they're for men only, right? But I'm keen to know, if the women partake or not. Yeah, I want to know, or how they partake. Yeah, I just want to know more details. The men moved silently in the area immediately surrounding the house. Around midday, all of us sat down again in the same order we had sat the night before. A basket with pieces of dried meat cut to the same size as a peyote button was passed around. Some of the men sang their peyote songs. After an hour or so, all of them stood up and went off in different directions. So much for your queuing. And they're all going off in different directions now and assumingly being separate, and your queuing whole theory is going to fall apart, right? Right, Beena? I mean, you need to be physically proximate to queue. Yeah. At least line of sight in some way. We don't
Yes.
know. I mean, it's open. They may still be in line of sight, but still. The woman had left a pot of gruel for the fire and water attendants. I ate some of it, and then I slept most of the afternoon. After dark, the young man in charge of the fire built another one, and the cycle of intaking peyote buttons began again. It followed roughly the same order as the preceding night, ending at daybreak. Now, what fascinates me here, Beena, is the
Yes.
length of time involved,
Hmm.
right? Remember when he first looked at his watch, it was 9 o'clock, right? So basically, they went through the whole night, yeah. And in the mid morning, the woman left, and then he slept the afternoon, and now the night has started again. So this whole mitote is a long, extended thing. You would think, just sort of by obvious things, when you are partaking of something, you're taking whatever, a power plant, you take it and then you experience the effect. You with me, Beena? What I mean?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, that's the assumption. You take it and then, all right, it may take a while, and half an hour, couple of hours before the thing kicks in, but even a couple of hours would be long, you would assume, right? It's like medication, the effects take a while to kick in. But they're not waiting for the effects of the previous night only, or they may be, but they're taking it again, right? So that part of it is not an issue. Yes. Now, I feel fairly confident to say the reason for it being long is that Mescalito doesn't just show himself. You eat a peyote button, you might not experience or connect to Mescalito. This is to show Mescalito that they are sincere. They're putting in the effort. Yes. And the earnestness and that extra effort shows, hey, we for real, we genuine. Because if you're not genuine, you're not going to be doing this for that length of time, making this extreme effort. You say, the hell with this, right? If you're just into
Yes.
the quick fix, immediate gratification, see. So this is a
Yes.
weeding out process. Now everybody here is genuine, so there's nobody who's going to be leaving. Yeah.
Yes.
But still, and even if you're there inadvertently, by this time you can't really leave, because you can't drive back on your own, you can't walk back on your own. You're sort of forced to really commit to the environment, yeah, to the activity. Yeah, makes sense. Again,
Yes.
attunement. Yes. Yeah. They
Yes.
are attuning to the earnestness of saying this is it. And also by the continued thing, they're enticing Mescalito, asking, and keep going until he comes. So right, you making it happen as well in some way, right? At least my perspective on it, right? I don't assume that this is complete, yeah, or accurate. Uh, After dark, oh yeah, it followed roughly the same order as the preceding night, ending at daybreak. Right, so now they're going a whole nother night again, right? Second night. During the course of the night, I struggled to observe and record every single movement performed by each of the 7 participants in hopes of discovering the slightest form of a detectable system of verbal or non-verbal communication among them. There was nothing in their actions, however, that revealed an underlying system. Yeah, it's not that it's not revealed. There's nothing there because there's nothing there. It's not that it wasn't revealed. There's just nothing there in the first place, Carlos. Right. Okay, Joseph says, not talking specifically about mitotes, but native traditional culture in general. Gender roles are very strong in traditional native culture. Yes, in almost all traditional cultures, gender roles are very strong. There are things the men do, things that the women do, and things either can do. Yes, this is common in cultures all around the world. Yes, any culture, the gender roles tend to be very well defined. Yeah, yeah. It's rare for there not to be specific roles. I can't think of any example, but that doesn't mean there are some very unique cultures out there, right? That are very different. I'm trying to think of the name of the specific tribe. Where in the mornings they all get together and around breakfast they share their dreams. Right? It's a very distinct part of their daily life and ritual because then they live and their dreams influences everything they do. So, it's a very unique part where dreams are such a central core part of the culture. It's not just about talking about the dreams, it's then acting on it, living with it, and the whole culture revolves around dreams. Now very so there are some very unique and different cultures out there. So I would imagine somewhere there'll be a culture where gender roles are not clearly defined. But yeah, but still, Joseph, what I'm curious about is I understand the roles being very clearly defined, yes, but I'm curious uh, if the women also get to partake. Maybe they have a separate mitote where they the focus and the men support them, or the men aren't there at all. That's what I'm curious about because so far there's been no mention of women partaking of peyote or connecting to mescalito. Yeah, yeah. And Joseph also says if a gay person wants to do what the opposite gender roles do, if they are earnest, they are generally accepted. That's the key, earnest. And that's a beautiful thing, Joseph. Yeah, yeah. That's wonderful. That's wonderful, Joseph. Like in sweat lodges. Wow, wonderful. This is very beautiful to me. That openness and that acceptance. Yes, celebrate your role, your gender, certainly, but be open to doing alternate, different. Yes, don't get stuck because if you get stuck in things, you don't grow. Right. So, do you know of women partaking in peyote ceremonies, Joseph? Like I said, I would assume the Church of Peyote, which is a modern variation of things, I would assume that's open to men and women. I don't know for sure, but just because of how it came about, I would assume so. I mean, I know Ayahuasca, my tongue is falling over. That's open to everybody, at least ceremonies, maybe not traditionally, but in the modern times it is. But I'm curious to know. I'm curious to know. Anyway, all right, let's continue reading here. Uh, there was nothing in their actions, however, that revealed an underlying system. Yeah. You see, he says revealed. He doesn't say there was no underlying system. I had to acknowledge there was no underlying system. He's still stuck on believing there is one, but he just can't see it. You see how he reveals the nuance of his thinking in his language, right? In the early evening, the cycle of intaking peyote was renewed. By morning, I knew that I had completely failed to find clues that would point out the covert leader, or to discover any form of covert communication among them, or any traces of their system of agreement. He's still believing it's there, he just can't find it. It's amazing. It's amazing. Confirmation bias, right? He's confirmation bias is, it's not in action here because he can't find anything to confirm his bias, but he has the bias part of confirmation bias, and it's helpful to understand, right? If there was even the slightest thing that could be misinterpreted, he would use it to support his theory. But the universe is really helping him out here, that even though he has the bias, he can find no confirmation. Fantastic. When the men gathered again for the fourth night, ow, that's how long, that's very arduous, wouldn't you say, Beena?
Say it again, please.
I say, when the men gathered again for the fourth night, that's
Yes.
quite arduous, 4 nights, yeah? For the fourth
Yes.
night, I knew somehow that this was to be the last meeting. How did you know, Carlos? There is a lot of subtle cueing that does go on in life in general. Yes.
Hmm.
And we just accept it because it's like a duh, right? And we don't pay attention to it. We just kind of know things like this. Nobody's doing it
Okay.
deliberately. It just comes about. It just happens, right? Nobody had mentioned anything about it to me, yet I knew they would disband the next day. I sat by the water again, and everyone else resumed his position in the order that had already been established. The behavior of the 7 men in the circle was a replica of what I had observed during the 3 previous nights. I became absorbed in their movements as I had done before. I wanted to record everything they did, every movement, every utterance, every gesture. At a certain moment, I heard a sort of beep in my ear. I love the spot coming now. It was a common sort of buzzing in the ear, and I did not pay attention to it. The beep became louder. Pay attention, Carlos. You're getting a literal beep notification to pay attention. Isn't that fascinating, Beena? Absolutely fascinating. The beep became
Yes.
louder, yet it was still within the range of my ordinary bodily sensations. I remember dividing my attention between watching the men and listening to the buzzing I was hearing. Then, at a given instance, the faces of the men seemed to become brighter. It was as if a light had been turned on, but it was not quite like an electric light or a lantern or the reflection of the fire on their faces. It was rather an iridescence, a pink luminosity, very tenuous, yet detectable from where I was. The buzzing seemed to increase. You know, if Carlos had this understanding of attunement, his entire perspective and perception and understanding and awareness, everything would be changed. Am I right, Beena? That buzzing takes on a whole different meaning in
Yes.
the context of
Yes.
attunement.
Yes. Yes. Sorry for
Unbelievable.
late response. I
Unbelievable.
was responding to someone. So yes, that's right.
Problem,
Absolutely.
no problem, no problem, no problem, no problem. Ah, the buzzing seemed to increase. I looked at the teenage boy who was with me, but he had fallen asleep. Yeah. Right. Like most things at the beginning, it was men's things. It was men's thing. It was a men's thing, says Joseph. Right. But times change, however slowly, and now women are accepted as part of the whole. Yes. Which makes me very joyful and very happy. You know, this
Yes.
whole inequality or inequity, just the imbalance really between men and women. This is it's no good. It's no good, really. Yeah, yeah. You know, again, capital B, balance, right? You're looking to strive for balance in your spiritual life, but don't have it in your cultural life. It's like, hello. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So yes, I am most heartened to see the changes. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, the pink, the teenage boy who was with me, but he had fallen asleep. The pink luminosity became more noticeable by then. I looked at Don Juan. His eyes were closed. So were Don Silvio's, and so were Mocho's. I could not see the eyes of the 4 younger men because 2 of them were bent forward and the other 2 had their backs turned to me. I became even more involved in watching. Yet I had not fully realized that I was actually hearing a buzzing and was actually seeing a pinkish glow hovering over the men. Wow, 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 what a gift. After a moment, I became aware that the tenuous pink light and the buzzing were very steady. I had a moment of intense bewilderment. And then the thought crossed my mind, a thought that had nothing to do with the scene I was witnessing, nor with the purpose I had in mind for being there. I remembered something my mother had told me once when I was a child. Anomalous. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. Yeah, yeah. And Joseph continues to say, this follows with ceremonies and medicine work. Yes, it's most wonderful, Joseph. I absolutely love it. You know, it really is encouraging to me, because when I see this, it is confirmation that the world is actually starting to finally evolve and grow up in just this one thing. It's a shift where you're breaking something that's been around for millennia. And that is very, very, very powerful, which means if this can, then, you know, other things will follow as well, right? So it's very, very encouraging. Anyway, so Carlos is saying here now, right? He's got this. I remembered something my mother had told me once when I was a child, an anomalous, a come-up takeaway, as we'd say in Way-Of-Impeccability, yeah? But this is obviously anomalous. This is attunement here. So it's like, hello, really pay attention. You got the buzzing and everything, all right? Thought was distracting and very inappropriate. Come on, Carlos, man. You see how attunement, just awareness of the concept of attunement makes all the difference. Carlos isn't realizing it's significant, of course, right? He's getting all the clues, but he's not, because he's not aware of attunement, he doesn't see it as attunement, and therefore it's significant, right? The thought was distracting and very inappropriate. Sigh, Carlos, sigh. Anyway, I tried to discard it and involve myself again in my assiduous watching. Inappropriate task, inappropriate intent. But I could not do it. The thought reoccurred. It was stronger, more demanding. And then I clearly heard my mother's voice calling me. I heard the shuffling of her slippers and then her laughter. I turned around looking for her. I conceived that I was going to be transported in time by some sort of hallucination or mirage, and I was going to see her. But I saw only the boy sleeping beside me. To see him jolted me, and I experienced a brief moment of ease, of sobriety. I looked again at the group of men. They had not changed their positions at all. However, the luminosity was gone, and so was the buzzing in my ears. I felt relieved. I thought that the hallucination of hearing my mother's voice was over. Her voice had been so clear and vivid. I said to myself over and over that for an instant the voice had almost trapped me. I noticed vaguely that Don Juan was looking at me, but that did not matter. It was the memory of my mother's voice calling me that was mesmerizing. I struggled desperately to think about something else. And then I heard her voice again, as clear as if she had been behind me. She called my name. I turned quickly, but all I saw was the dark silhouette of the shack and the shrubs beyond it. Hearing my name caused me the most profound anguish. I whined involuntarily. I felt cold and very lonely and began to weep. At that moment, I had the sensation that I needed someone to care for me. I turned my head to look at Don Juan. He was staring at me. I did not want to see him, so I closed my eyes, which is what you should have done a long time ago, but all right. And then I saw my mother. It was not the thought of my mother the way I think of her ordinarily. This was a clear vision of her standing by me. I felt desperate. I was trembling and wanted to escape. The vision of my mother was too disturbing, too alien to what I was pursuing in the peyote meeting. Appropriateness, Carlos, appropriateness. You think your agenda is the only appropriate one. Because you're not in attunement, you are completely disconnected and you are unable to perceive what is appropriate. And now all of this anguish is simply because he feels that he's not following his agenda and he's not in attunement with attunement. Yes? Isn't that amazing, Beena? Attunement. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, very cool, Joseph. Joseph just goes on to say, all except maybe the most sacred ceremonies that try to follow the old ways and gender roles. It is believed by many that to change things much in certain important ceremonies is sacrilegious. Yes, that's always the problem when you have things locked in this way, right? And this is the problem with tradition, that it can be counterproductive, or at least kind of locked in such a way that change and upgrading and updating and improvements and innovation get excluded, and things can only be the same way, and there's no opportunity for change, and that's a great limitation when it comes to tradition. Yes, and we need to understand that. So to me, if you're going to have a tradition that part of your tradition is to update, grow, change, evolve, etc. If that's part of your tradition, like for instance computer tradition, upgrades are part of computer tradition. Yes. No reason why we can't follow the same path in cultural traditions. Moreness culture, it's absolutely intrinsic to Moreness culture. Learning, growing, improving, updating, evolving, right? This is what Moreness culture is. There's always more. It's inherent in the word Moreness. Yeah? All right, very cool. I want to get back to the story of Carlos and with his mother, right? This was a clear vision of her standing by me. I felt desperate. I was trembling and wanted to escape. The vision of my mother was too disturbing, too alien to what I was pursuing in that Pt10 meeting. There was apparently no conscious way to avoid it. Perhaps I could open my eyes if I really wanted the vision to vanish, but instead I examined it in detail. My examination was more than merely looking at her. It was a compulsive scrutiny and assessment. A very peculiar feeling enveloped me, as if it were an outside force, and I suddenly felt the horrendous burden of my mother's love. What a gift from attunement. Right? This whole experience, if Carlos wasn't so completely focused on his personal agenda here, inappropriate agenda, if he had been open to attunement and following attunement, he would see this for the incredible gift that it is. He's going to see so later on by, with Don Juan's help. But look what he says here, Beena. Yes. That he says, this outside force now, right? And he says, a very peculiar feeling enveloped me, as if it were an outside force, and I suddenly felt the horrendous burden of my mother's love. I don't think that sentence I've ever really seen it anywhere else.
Yes.
It's very, very particular, very nuanced, very sophisticated, very layered, very meaningful sentence, right? And we have to find out why, of course. When I heard my name, I was torn apart. The memory of my mother filled me with anguish and melancholy. But when I examined her, I knew that I had never liked her. Honesty coming in. Honesty, and also breaking with supposed to and should and accepted cultural tradition of this is an absolute. You have to love your mother, and you have to like your mother, and you have etc., right? And your mother's love is a gift, etc. The world does not work the way we think it does, right? Very, very good example of it here, right? Now we have to understand why, particularly, right? We'll see. Yeah. And I knew that I had never liked her. This was a shocking realization. Fortunately for me, I always was aware of that from day go. Yeah, it just is what it is sometimes, and it didn't affect me in a negative way. It was just that was it was. I mean, my mother wasn't a particularly likable person to me, and so I didn't like her. End of story. That was it. It was like the trees are green. It was the same kind of logic. Anyway, thoughts and images came to me as an avalanche. The vision of my mother must have vanished in the meantime. It was no longer important. I was no longer interested in what the Indians were doing either. In fact, I'd forgotten the mitote. I was absorbed in a series of extraordinary thoughts. Extraordinary because they were more than thoughts. These were complete units of feeling that were emotional certainties, indisputable evidences about the nature of my relationship with my mother. You see what's happening, of course. Yes, is in a mitote. the kind of vision he's having. This is what Mescalito does.
Yes.
Being affected by Mescalito, even though he hasn't taken the buttons, right?
Yes.
Simply by being there. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
It's too fast. And that's what I was saying. When Carlos said, "Oh, I'm not going to partake," and Don said, "Oh, don't worry." Don Juan knows what's going to happen, right? He knows. Don't worry, Carlos. You know, you're going to be affected nonetheless. All right. I know we're coming to time, but I want to finish the story here, right?
Yes.
Indisputable evidences about the nature of my relationship with my mother. At a certain moment, these extraordinary thoughts ceased to come. I noticed that they had lost their fluidity and their quality of being complete units of feeling. I had begun to think about other things. My mind was rambling. I thought of other members of my immediate family, but there were no images to accompany my thoughts. Then I looked at Don Juan. He was standing. The rest of the men were also standing. And then they all walked toward the water. I moved aside and nudged the boy who was still asleep. I related to Don Juan the sequence of my astounding vision almost as soon as he got into my car. He laughed with great delight and said that my vision was a sign, an omen as important as my first experience with Mescalita. And now he has a big jump here now, right? Because I moved aside and nudged the boy who was still asleep. There he's still at the mitote. Now, when he said I related the sequence of my astounding vision to Don Juan almost as soon as he got into my car, he's not saying that, they left, went back. His car is not there. He didn't drive up to the mitote in his car. So there should be an indication of, like, there should be a little asterisk there to say, hey, this is a whole new section here, and this time has passed, right? You with me, Beena? What I mean? Anyway.
Not
So it's
completely.
just we into a whole new ship, All right. So this is a whole new section, right? Um, where he's I remember that when he's relating to Don Juan, and we'll do that tomorrow. We'll start the recap, right? Because it's going to be a long thing now, right? I mean, there should be like I said, there should be a break here, but there isn't. So yeah, I mean, it's just but editing issue here. Right. Brilliant, brilliant. All right, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Ryan Wozniak joined us as well, and Dushkatari joined us. Dushkatari, hello. Always wonderful when you are here. Always wonderful. All right, brilliant, brilliant. Bye bye, everybody on TikTok. Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And just for my own emphasis, of course, because I want to continue with this. What Carlos was having, like, okay, especially when he mentioned that, okay, he feels that horrendous burden of his mother's love. That was again very very different way of explaining it, and it's a very different feeling. But also, I was feeling that mother is a symbol that, okay, um, kind of a virtual origin of ourselves, like, because
Right.
from where we come. So it is the connection, of course, not necessarily that what he is feeling. Okay, I don't know about the story at all, but what he was feeling was the true self, that the connectivity towards the origin of us as human, of course, as a species, or what he was feeling, that horrendous burden of that. It could be the burden of the love of the universe we all
That
belong
too.
to.
But we have to be careful of assuming. This doesn't
Of
mean
course, I'm
that
just sharing
all
for
mothers' love
my
is
own understanding.
horrendous burden, right? It's just him in his particular instance. Yeah.
Oh yes, I'm just saying, maybe sometimes we say that, oh, this is filthy rich. Okay, that's sometimes we just say that, so that maybe this is his way of saying that horrendous burden of.
Yeah.
Yes, the burden, I can, yes,
Because he
sometimes
said
we can.
of my mother's love, not the
Yes.
horrendous burden of mother's love in general, right? So
No, 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 no,
it's
no.
particularly
But
him.
but I'm just saying that is still, even when it is very particularly about himself, he's saying that, okay, my mother. But the mother in everyone's life is a symbol of the origin where we
Correct.
come from. So yes, that's why.
Right.
I'm just saying that. Okay, this is very interesting. Very interesting. Thank you so much, sir, for joining, for
And
sharing all these things.
it brings up the whole concept, sorry, of inappropriate love. Yes, inappropriate
Exactly.
application of goodness.
This
And this
this
is a
could
big
also
topic.
be,
So,
of
yeah.
course, this could also be,
We're going to see
yes.
Or
Possibly.
when he talks to Don Juan in like get some Don Juan therapy. We're gonna
Yes, 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 we will see that. Okay, there are tons of possibilities. Of course, we are just assuming what is coming, and of course, we assume things based on our experiences. So yes, my life experience is different, so I assume things on a different way. Someone else, of course, is going to assume things differently. Mostly,
yeah.
our assumptions based on or get affected by our experiences. If like people do get into immediately jump to negatives, why? Because they have been experiencing all this thing. Some are just living in illusion that okay, yes, everything is all wonderful and nice, because by chance they never get a chance to experience the existing negativity also. So, of course, it depends on our experiences. Thank you so much, Sel, for sharing. Thank you so much, Joseph, for sharing also. And thank you, everyone who joined us on TikTok. If you guys are there, please, we need that, because it is becoming a technical need for us, because doing lives on TikTok needs a lot of like, okay, qualification. We need some that, okay, qualify this, qualify that, qualify that. So, yes, we need that. So, please do help us, because this is the only help you can do, because we are trying our best to share, capital S, share the Moreness culture here. It is not limited to us, it is for everyone. And of course, we all, everyone who is aware of the value of Moreness and awareness, it's their thing. And you have to promote the goodness in life. This is
Oh
something,
yeah.
yes, I feel that, okay, it's a good thing to do. Of course, you are not obliged to. No, this is completely against the understanding of way of impeccability, where you are not obliged to be positive even. You just, the only obligation we have to not be negative. So yes, being neutral,
Yes.
being in
Yes.
space is a big, huge deal, and a very life-changing concept from way of impeccability. So I'm not negating that, but I'm saying that okay, right now we are in the need, because there are some technical details involved to reach out, to maximize our reach. We need all these things. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Please pay attention to your online algorithm, because it is going to definitely affect your life algorithm.
Oh
Again,
yeah. Oh yeah.
emphasis, right, in this world and of course in the future, attention and focus is the currency. This is the new currency. We will deal with energy. People are becoming more and more aware of energy. So when you are investing your energy in something, be really, really wise and be really scrupulous about that, because this is the future currency. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you guys tomorrow.
Bye bye everybody. Bye bye. Wonderful close there, Beena. Beautiful, beautiful. Bye bye everybody. And live meeting and meeting for